I have an acquaintance, a friend, whose name is John. His full name is John Gilmore. And he came to me one day, maybe a couple, 3, 4 years ago, and he said, Dr. Duprey, am I reading correctly? I said, what? He gave me a paragraph, and he said, check this out. This is a paragraph from a magazine, and the article was written by Ellen White 120, 130 years ago. And I took it home, and I looked at it. He said, is it possible that this is a chiastic structure? Now, in case some of our readers or viewers are not aware...
Yeah, you need to explain that for some.
Yes, but before we even get to chiastic structure,
yes.
Who is Ellen White? Now, she's well known. She's written a lot of books. She's the most prolific female writer in religious area, most prolific American writer. And one of her books is very well known. It's The Great Controversy.
Oh, yes.
And this book is being distributed around the world in different languages right now by the Seventh Adventist members.
Yes.
So Great Controversy is well known, but that's an example of one of her key books.
Yes.
Recently, there's an encyclopedia that's just come off the press, so to speak.
Yes.
It's called the Ellen G. White Encyclopedia. For those who are interested, this is available through the Review and Herald.
Yeah.
And it's 1,000 pages. It took over a decade to prepare for those who are interested. And I would urge you to read, especially The Great Controversy and the encyclopedia, if you want to learn a lot about who Ellen White is. But what is this chiastic structure? So I looked at this paragraph, and sure enough, I was amazed. Wait a minute, this is a chiastic structure. Huh? So I took it to some other scholars. I was myself not too sure, but I thought I saw it. 2 Old Testament scholars both looked at it and said, it is. And then they said, but you know, one of them said, it could be a fluke. Maybe she did this and it was not intentional.
Now that's the question that pops up in my mind. Well, just, you know, if you do it long enough, you hit something by accident. It could be, yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And this friend of mine who said it might be a fluke, he said, bring me a dozen, then I'll say it was probably part of her style or intentional.
Yes.
That next year, 6 months later, I decided to read. I'm reading my Bible. I read it in a different version just for devotional purposes every year. I have my study Bible, the New King James Version. But I decided to read The Desire of Ages, and I was amazed. Paragraph number 1 jumped out at me. And then I got to paragraph number 2 and paragraph number 3. And as I went through it, I could hardly believe what I was seeing. In The Desire of Ages, page 20, paragraph 1. And I've asked them to put this up. We're not going to read it. But this is a fascinating chiastic structure. And you can see it looks like it goes indented, A, B, C, 1, 2, D, and then C, 2, 1, B, A. And as you look at it, there's a chiastic structure on page 20, number 1. And it's fascinating how the first line A echoes the last line A prime. The next line B echoes the next B at the bottom. And so everything works towards the middle. And the middle is, it was his hand that hung the worlds in space. And as the cosmic concept, and then she says, notice the alliteration, and fashioned the flowers of the fields. Just exquisite beauty.
Yeah.
And so she writes with this literary artistry, and the main point is in the middle.
Yes.
And I could hardly believe what I was discovering. I shared it with another scholar, a third Old Testament scholar, and he said to me, absolutely, this is a chiasm. Now, chiasm comes from the Greek letter chi.
Yes.
And it's when you go from A, B, C, D, C, B, A, or A, B, C, B, A. It's the way it's structured, and the main point, if it's a chiasm, that center point is the focus. It's not the topic sentence and then a conclusion.
Yes.
But your topic sentence is kind of smack bang in the middle. And so the thoughts echo each other, and there's beauty in it, and the first A will actually be echoed and enlarged in the last A, and similarly.
Yes.
And so, long story short, I was invited to actually make a presentation. At the 10th Ellen G. White Symposium, I made a presentation on the literary structures in the writings of Ellen White.
Wow, wow.
And the scholars were there, and the seminary students were there at Andrews University. And then I spoke at one of the classes later on, and there was an incredible excitement as people began to recognize and see these poetic structures. Now, in English, we have, let's say, Jack and Jill. Well, let's use Humpty Dumpty. Sat on a wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. In English, we rhyme the words. In the Hebrew, they rhyme the concepts. And you see that in Jesus saying, love your enemy. Do good to those who persecute you. Pray for those who despitefully use you. So you have the echoing concept rather than echoing words. And as you look at Ellen White's writing now, and just exploring it. She uses the same type of thing. Fascinating, the literary beauty and helping you to see the meaning even deeper.
Yes, yes.
So that's what we were talking about when we talk about rightly dividing the word. Because we're going to even look at Scripture. In Scripture, there are other things that we see. But I wanted to mention that because it's some of the most recent study, and there are going to be 2 articles that are going to be published about this, the literary structures in Ellen White's writings that are similar to the way the Scriptures are written, both the Old and New Testament, as well as ancient literature of other places.
What that does is put another brick in the wall to those who believe that Ellen White is an inspired writer. The fact that someone with a 3rd grade education can write with chiastic structure is fabulous. And what's interesting is that structure, and I'll let you get back to it, but it just occurs to me as a person who has studied journalism is against what journalism is, because it's burying the lead. The lead should be up top, but a chiasm gives you the meat or the jelly or whatever you want in the middle, and then you got bread on both sides, kind of thing. But journalistically, that's wrong.
Correct.
But biblically, it works because it reinforces what's on both sides of that core part.
One
That's
of
really
my
fabulous.
Old Testament professor friends says it's like climbing a mountain. You start at the top and you get right up to the peak, and then you go down the other side. And the peak is where it all meets, and that's where it's exciting. You go from the top to see the vista, but the echoes go all the way up.
Yes.
And it's a different way, and that's the way they wrote, chiastically.
Yes,
so it's a fascinating area of study. That
it really is.
It's been expanded and explored by many scholars from different walks of life, different denominations. It's a recognition of the way that the ancients wrote, both in the Old and the New Testament.
Yes.
And many more. And here is a layperson, by the way. That's why I'm telling the story. John Gilmore brought it to my attention. It didn't come from the scholars. And the reason I want to share that is I want to encourage laity to use proper tools to dig deeply. And so John found this, and he's found more. He shared it with me. I've done some checking, I've done some tweaking of it, and I've shared it with others who've helped me dig deeper and to see some of the beauties in it.
Yeah, this is cutting edge stuff. I'm sure that many of our audience, this is brand new news, as it was to me when we talked about this a little bit ago.
In fact, I am suggesting if there's a doctoral student who wants to go and study now, look at Ellen White's books and study the literary structures there to explore and see how she wrote. I shared this one day with a pastor, a Seventh-day Adventist pastor, and he said, wow, that's good to know. When I went to school, they told me to look for the topic sentence, then it's unpacked, and then the conclusion. He said, I had a hard time understanding some of the things you said. He said, now I'll read it differently.
See, that's straight Western modern journalism. But obviously she didn't write that way.
No, she did not. Apparently she spent a lot of time in the Word. It became part of her very way in which she thought. She was a Bible student.
Yes.
So it's fascinating. So that's some of the latest stuff that's happening out there, and it's going to be published one this year, one next year in 2 different places to help people to dig and to understand. Now, of course, you could read it and understand without that. But this just adds some of the beauty. It's like putting it in color instead of black and white.
Precisely.